Thank you for coming today. I'm attorney Gloria Allred, and I have a statement. And then after I make my statement, Angelique will provide her name and she will present her statement. After Angelique will be a Jane Doe, and she will present her statement, and then Daniela. And at the end, I'll take questions, and Daniela will take questions. And the other two will not be taking questions. So today that we are here to announce that we are filing yet another lawsuit against the University of Southern California, USC, and Dr. George Tyndall on behalf of a dozen current or former USC women who allege that they were victimized by the USC gynecologist, Dr. Tyndall. With the filing of this lawsuit this morning, we are now representing a total of 36 alleged victims in these lawsuits, and we expect to be filing even more lawsuits in the near future on behalf of other USC students with similar allegations. Some of the shocking allegations made in the lawsuit, which we filed today, include an incident alleged by Plaintiff Susan Vail, in which she alleges the defendant, Dr. Tyndall, quote, digitally penetrated her vagina, end quote. And then after he, quote, removed his fingers from her vagina, end quote, he suddenly and without consent and without warning stuck one of his fingers deeply up Plaintiff Vail's rectum. This happened immediately after the vaginal exam without changing gloves, if he was wearing one, and without applying lubricant. It was painful and it was shocking. Plaintiff Vail felt completely violated and stunned, end quote. Another very disturbing allegation made in our lawsuit is alleged by Jane Doe 22. She alleges that while she was a student at USC and a patient of Dr. Tyndall, that he asked her, quote, questions about her orgasms, the frequency of her orgasms, and gave plaintiff Jane Doe 22 advice on how to achieve orgasm. Defendant Tyndall also gave plaintiff Jane Doe 22 a flyer on exercises that she could do to increase the frequency of orgasm. Plaintiff Jane Doe 22 never asked Tyndall for this advice, end quote. In other paragraphs of our lawsuit, we allege other disturbing conduct by Dr. Tyndall. For example, our client Jane Doe 24 alleges that Dr. Tyndall, while examining both of her breasts, squeezed her nipple area on both of her breasts. She believes that there was no female nurse or chaperone in the room at the time of the examination. Jane Doe 24 also alleges that while defendant Tyndall was examining her, he looked closer towards her vagina and said, quote, are you Filipino, end quote. Our client, Jane Doe 27, was just 17 years old when she was a USC student and became a patient of Dr. Tyndall. As is true for many of our clients, it was her first visit to a gynecologist. She alleges in our lawsuit that Dr. Tyndall told her, quote, that he needed to take pictures of her vagina in case someone later accused him of not detecting cancer, end quote. Based on these allegations and more, and evidence that we have that USC knew for decades of Dr. Tyndall's inappropriate behavior, we filed this new lawsuit against USC and Dr. Tyndall today. We allege first cause of action for sexual battery in violation of California Civil Code, Section 178.5, that's 1708.5, against defendant Tyndall. Second cause of action for battery against defendant Tyndall. Third cause of action, gender violence. Fourth cause of action, sexual harassment. Fifth cause of action, violation of the California Unruh Civil Rights Act. Sixth cause of action, violation of the California Bain Act. Seventh cause of action, sexual harassment. Eighth cause of action, negligent hiring and retention. Ninth cause of action, negligent supervision. 10th cause of action, fraudulent misrepresentation. 11th cause of action, negligent misrepresentation. 12th cause of action, intentional infliction of emotional distress. 13th cause of action, negligent infliction of emotional distress. We're seeking compensatory and punitive damages according to proof at trial. Our clients and all victims of Dr. Tyndall and USC deserve justice, and it's long overdue for USC and Dr. Tyndall to be made accountable for the betrayal of trust and for the serious damage that they have inflicted on the vulnerable young women, students at USC. We will not stop until we win justice for our clients who were victimized. Our clients are speaking truth to power, and we're very proud of them. Trojan women deserve justice, and the time for it to finally be offered to them is now.
Again, my name is Angelique Stubblefield. I attended USC from 1989 until 1994. I sought medical assistance from the USC Health Center in the fall of 1989 for a very basic yeast infection. While there, I was examined by Dr. George Tyndall, who gave me a pelvic examination. During my visit, he examined me unattended and indicated that I had a tilted cervix and asked to photograph my vagina for his research. Since I had never seen a gynecologist prior to Dr. Tyndall, I acquiesced and agreed, thinking I was helping the university in its medical studies. For years, I've been affected by this visit. For many years after Dr. Tyndall examined me, I told people that I was diagnosed with a tilted cervix. I found out years later by visiting another gynecologist that this simply was not true. Then, on May 16th, 2018, after reading the Los Angeles Times article about Dr. Tyndall's inappropriate conduct, I experienced an extreme spike in my blood pressure and was transported to an ER hospital facility from my place of employment after an emergency hypertensive episode. My blood pressure was documented at 236/130, and I was almost admitted to ICU. I have remained on high blood pressure medication since. I have missed weeks of work and have been left confused, depressed, and anxiety-ridden. As a result, I am currently seeking therapy. I didn't even know how to speak to my children about this issue. This has been very traumatizing for me, as I've had to relive this horrible experience all over again every day since May 16th, 2018. I've hibernated this experience in the back of my mind for decades. This happened almost 30 years ago. Public awareness of his decades of abuse is confirmation of not only my experience, but the hundreds of other victims of his sadistic abuse. I not only hold Dr. Tyndall accountable for his sick sexual predatory actions, but I want USC to be held accountable for having knowledge of this abuse and turning a blind eye to Dr. Tyndall's actions and his victims. I'm utterly appalled by how his perverse behavior has been handled by the university. I was so incredibly proud to be accepted and to attend what I thought was a prestigious academic institution that cultivated talented minds seeking the common goal of educating our youth to be the next generation of leaders. It is now my perception that USC takes care of its own staff and faculty, and it is also my perception that they run a business and not an elite academic institution, as I once believed as an innocent 18-year-old entering the university. Dr. Tyndall and USC have stripped the confidence and trust of hundreds of students who sought medical treatment under Dr. Tyndall's care. It is now time to make it right and start the healing process. My incident happened back in 1989. What if the university acted upon the first complaints decades ago? Take a moment to contemplate that. Where would we be today? I am someone's daughter. I am someone's mother. I put my trust in an academic institution to take reasonable care and provide a certain amount of prudent protection while attending college. This clearly should not have happened to me or the alleged hundreds of young women who sought treatment at what should have been the safest place on campus. I am just asking for the university to make this right and perhaps give not only myself, but these other women justice for the horrific experiences we all have endured. Thank you.
I was a student at USC from 1996 to 2000. During that time, I was treated by George Tyndall several times. Like many women, I was treated unprofessionally and inappropriately. I was shocked to recently find out USC knew about his behavior since 1990, but did nothing to protect women like me from abuse. I believe USC cared more about protecting its reputation than protecting its students. George Tyndall went on to mistreat young women for decades. This May, I reported my experiences to USC. At the time, I was told the LAPD would contact me to follow up on my report. However, I have yet to be contacted by the LAPD.
Thank you. I'm now going to read a statement by another Jane Doe that she asked me to read, and she could not be here today to read this. In early 1999, I was a graduate student at the USC School of Cinema Television. I needed to renew my birth control prescription, so I made an appointment at the Student Health Center for the annual exam required to renew my prescription. I did not want my contraceptive coverage to lapse, so I accepted the first available appointment for a pelvic exam. I was assigned to see Dr. Tyndall, George Tyndall. As a 26-year-old woman at the time, I was familiar with the procedure of the vaginal pelvic exam. This was not my first one. However, this exam completely departed from the norm. As soon as Dr. Tyndall finished the pelvic exam, he suddenly, and without warning, performed a rectal exam, penetrating me from behind with his finger. I was absolutely stunned and horrified. For this kind of penetration to occur without my consent, without any communication or warning, even in a doctor's office, seemed inappropriate, disrespectful, and invasive. I felt violated and mortified. I also felt helpless, wondering to myself if I should say something to protest the doctor whom my university had sanctioned to treat me and all other female students at USC. I finally wrote a complaint to the Student Health Center on a comment card. Despite my warning and others' complaints about him, USC allowed him to prey upon female students for 17 more years. This is unacceptable. A few months ago in May, I felt a sick feeling in my stomach as I read the expose in the LA Times about Dr. Tyndall's decades of abuse of USC women. Memory of that appointment came flooding back. I could not remember the doctor's name, but I vividly remembered his face, what he did, and how upset I felt. I requested my medical records from USC and was shocked to hear that USC destroys all medical records after 10 years. The only information that they could provide me was confirmation of an appointment with Dr. Tyndall in 1999. Since then, I have been treated by many wonderful doctors in my life, and every single female gynecologist that I have seen has clearly explained their actions during a medical exam with no surprises and no trauma. This is a difficult story to share, but I want to support the other women who have come forward, who were violated by Dr. Tyndall. I want current and future college students to feel supported to raise their voices, to report abuse as well. I want universities to make the safety of their students paramount. And I want to set an example to my own children that their mother is not afraid to raise her voice and fight for herself. And for them, we must speak truth to power.
Imagine having flashbacks of a 67-year-old man molesting you. Imagine being afraid to close your eyes because of memories coming back. I want each person that even knew of what was going on at USC to speak up and to hold themselves accountable. I can't imagine it being easy for you to speak up and admit your wrongdoing. I bet you also can't imagine standing up and admitting to being a victim of sexual battery. We stand up to make changes. We stand up for what is right. We stand up for everyone, not for ourselves. As I sit here today, I am proud for the women coming forward. The community we have created for an open conversation is both supportive and eye-opening. For the press, I urge you to cover the individual stories. We are put forward as victims. We are victims, but we are so much more than that. We are students, just like the rest of the student body at USC. We got accepted into USC. We have attributes that span far more than the ideals of a victim. I want the public to see the people beyond our faces and what our lives are like. I want people to see how this could have happened to anyone. I want people to see the effects of Tyndall and how they go far beyond sitting in front of a camera sharing graphic details of intimate appointments. I get mad at myself sometimes. Why did I go to a doctor at USC? Why did I trust a doctor at a university? Why did I trust USC at the beginning? For all I knew of it was it being a top-ranked university. I don't know how to trust anymore. I used to believe in everyone and everything, but now I doubt. I doubt my professors, my institution, my friends, and unfortunately even my family at times. Because on April 4th, 2016, I stepped foot into the office of a gynecologist that would molest me. But all I knew at the moment that he was a gynecologist at a top-ranked university. I was proud to be accepted into USC. In most ways, I am a proud Trojan. But seeing USC's name in the news alongside a scandal makes me sick. Perhaps if the victims didn't stand up, this wouldn't be on the news. But that is not our job. Our job as students and members of an institution like USC is to stand up and be faithful and loyal, to be strong, and most importantly, to be loyal for what is right. The university is standing up to make amends with victims and to make changes internally. I want to see these changes. Most importantly, I want to know what USC knew, who at USC knew, and why this went on for so long. No, we cannot take back what happened, but we are taking action against those that overlooked this and let it continue to happen. People knew. That is baffling. People knew that young women were becoming victims. We did not choose to become victims. We chose to take a responsible action by making sure that we were healthy. These appointments did the opposite. Our mental health has taken a toll. As time progressed, my confusion and anger continues to be fueled. This was hidden. Sexual misconduct and medical misconduct was overlooked by USC. Stand up. Victims, stand up for yourselves. Let your voices be heard. Do not let what happened before dictate your life or make you feel less worthy for anything. Stand up for others. We are here together. Victims are uniting. Again, never would I have imagined that I would be in a community created by victims and for victims. But we are here together. You do not need to be on the news. You do not need your name to be public. And truly, if you do not want to take legal action, you don't have to. No one is forcing you to do anything. But I want everyone to know that the resources are here. You can talk to a lawyer for free. You can speak with victims who have spoken up, and you can speak to the lawyers who represent us. No matter the severity you believe your experience was, if you are traumatized by your experiences with Tyndall or any other medical practitioner at USC, speak up. We are here for you. You are not alone. Let me repeat this. You are not alone.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my question is about the follow-up. So USC's administration has set up this hotline. They've assigned a certain number of people to take testimonies. How would you characterize what USC has done after these incidents became public?
It's not sufficient because, as was pointed out by Jane Doe here, she was told that the Los Angeles Police Department would contact her. We know they're doing an investigation, and she's never been contacted. So, I mean, having a hotline or just someone to communicate who is not following up is not sufficient. And then, of course, there's a lot of talk about Dr. Tyndall. This is not just about Dr. Tyndall. It's about justice for those who were victimized. And so that is our constant theme because we have to remember them. And we have to know if there's going to be justice for them. Right now it's not. There is no justice for them yet. There are many, many lawsuits that have been filed. I want to point out Daniela was on our first lawsuit. So now the total is 36. As I said, there'll be more. But there's no justice for them yet. There's still litigation going on by us and by others as well. Yeah.
So how do we know that this isn't continuing to happen with other physicians, and what can be done to prevent other physicians from doing so?
You mean at USC?
Anywhere in California.
The question is, how do we prevent this happening elsewhere, and how do we know it's not going on still at USC?
Or anywhere.
Or anywhere. And so the answer is that I believe that when a university or any other institution understands that the cost of the wrong is going to have to be borne by the wrongdoer, namely the entity and the individual who have allowed this to go on, have condoned it, or ratified it after they had knowledge that it was happening, that they are going to be the ones that have to bear the cost of the wrong. It shouldn't have to be the victims who are bearing the cost of the wrong. Some victims, I'm not saying it's any of those present with me today, have had to go through years of therapy as a result of what they suffered, and or other health issues with healthcare providers. It's just wrong. So they have a duty, if they've retained a physician, to make sure that that physician has someone there with them, a chaperone or a nurse, or someone to monitor the behavior, to witness the behavior, and I might add, not step away and not turn their back when certain behaviors are happening, which has been alleged by some of our clients. So once they understand that this is not only a stain on their reputation, which of course has an impact on their fundraising, but harmful to their students, then when they'll have an incentive to make sure this doesn't happen again. These young women are USC. USC is not just a university. It's not just someone that is known for its sports reputation or its academic reputation. These women are USC, and they deserve protection.
Gloria, the chair of the board of trustees for USC has said he hopes that a settlement could occur with all of the many women who have come.
Is that Rick Caruso? Yeah, go ahead.
So I just wanted to get your thoughts on it, because I know you said you were seeking compensatory as well as punitive damages with regard to this. Would you or maybe any of your clients be willing to settle this
Well,
case?
That's a good question as well. And the answer is any lawyer should always act in the best interest of her or his clients, which means they should always be open to listening to what a defendant, in this case USC and Dr. Tyndall, are willing to offer in order to resolve a lawsuit. At this time, USC has not reached out to me, and obviously they know that I represent numerous persons who allege that they are victims, to discuss any issue of settlement. I'm not blaming them for that, and I'm not commending them for that, but they know where I am. If, as and when they are serious about trying to resolve this matter. Some cases are resolved early on. Sometimes it's only after a great deal of litigation and depositions and expert testimony. And sometimes it's right before trial, and sometimes it's after trial. So I have no idea what they have in mind, because we have had no communication about settlement. If, as and when they do reach out, if they do, however, we will not be commenting on that, because we don't comment on that. Yeah.
Gloria, what do you know about Dr. Tyndall? What's his status?
I have no idea. I know there's a criminal investigation of Dr. Tyndall. I mean, I haven't read any reports that he's been charged. I haven't been in contact with his attorney, so I don't know.
Have any of your clients been talking to the LAPD?
I can't comment on that, except to say that this Jane Doe has not been contacted, which is an extremely important point she made, because we wonder how many others who have reported to USC and were told that the LAPD would be contacting them as a result of their report to LAPD have not, in fact, been contacted. We don't know the answer, but it's of great concern. There are a number of our clients who would be willing to speak to the Los Angeles Police Department. I'm not going to comment on how many have at this time, but suffice it to say, I think that's important as well.
Related to that, Gloria, how many of your 36 have called that hotline that USC set up?
I don't have an answer to that at this time.
You said it wasn't sufficient what USC has done, so what should they have done after they got all this information and the survivors called in with their testimonies? What should USC have done?
Well, if they've reported it, obviously they need to do an independent investigation, which I believe they've indicated they're doing. And then I think it's important for them to start reaching out to the attorneys like me and others to understand what has happened here. We understand that investigations take time, but we have to understand also that many of our clients in these lawsuits are experiencing continuous trauma by the fact that USC has not made changes of which they are aware, and that's something that Daniela pointed out. She made a very important point. So, I mean, these victims are not going away. And they're not going to stop until there is an acceptable form of justice for them. Yes?
Hi, I have two just factual questions and then one for Danielle. I believe you're the only one who
Yes.
is taking. Okay. Today's lawsuit is how many women?
So a total of 36 that we have filed.
Right, but today exactly.
Oh, for today it's a dozen,
It's 1 dozen.
12.
and
Yeah,
that
in
was
fact,
9
we're giving out copies of the lawsuit
Right, so
along
that's-
with the case number, because we did file it this morning. But we are going to provide you with copies of the lawsuits.
Wonderful.
So
The
just to
12, but not Daniela.
Daniela's, no, Daniela was the first, so she's part of the 36, but no, she's not part of the 12.
Thank you
There are
so
12
much.
others in here. Thank you for clarifying it.
And
Yeah, okay. Daniela, you want to move over a little bit, please? We'll move over here. Thank you. Go ahead.
Further to the center, please.
Yeah, go ahead. All right.
Danielle, I know you've spoken out before, but for today, if you could just tell us a little, are you still a student? And could you in any way tell us what happened to you, how you did that kind of thing? Are you able to speak out at all on that today?
Yes,
If
so
that's possible.
I'm a graduate student right now at USC. I graduated from my undergraduate this past May. I saw Dr. Tyndall the end of my sophomore year, April 4th, 2016. Nobody else was in the room. I spoke to him in his office, and then I went into the exam room. The rest of my statement is on Gloria's website, but it was a lot of it was it was my first visit to a gynecologist fully, so I had no idea what was right and wrong.
And sitting up in front of all of us today, once again, I can't imagine this is easy for you. So can you tell us the feelings that you're having right now?
I think every time I sit at this chair, I get flashbacks again of what happened when I saw Dr. Tyndall. Just getting a little bit more comfortable sitting up here, but it's not easy talking about something so personal.
Okay.
Daniela, I have one more question for Daniela.
Okay, go ahead.
So, Daniela, some of the survivors I've talked to criticize the university's handling of the calls and the hotline. They say that those calls were mishandled. But something you said earlier was interesting. You said the university is standing up. Can you tell us what you meant by that? And then go a little to the center of it.
The Board of Trustees has made statements saying that they are taking action. Nikias has agreed to step down. I don't know. I don't think that at all writes what wrongdoings have happened, corrects what wrongdoings have happened. But USC seems to be open. Mr. Caruso does seem to, in his statements, be very open and warm to the victims. But I have yet to actually see what changes in policies have been made at all, which is what I'm looking for. And I'm looking for people to step up at USC and say, I knew about this, and this is why we overlooked it. And I think that's a big thing. That's closure is a big thing. We know that this happened years ago, but how moving forward to make sure that other institutions throughout California, throughout the world, actually see how they can make changes to make sure there aren't more victims.
Did you call the hotline? And if so, what was that experience like?
I called the hotline. They were really nice. Didn't really seem helpful at all. They offered mental health help, therapy. They asked me to recount my experience multiple times, and I hadn't spoken with anybody else about it. So
There was no follow-up from them?
there was a woman who answered the hotline, and I'm not really sure who she was. Didn't seem like she was any sort of medical practitioner. She just asked me to state my story and when I saw him. And then I had a follow-up from a nurse, and he was very nice. And he kind of just asked me to say the story again. Again, there wasn't really any help that went along with that.
What about, were you also told that you'd be contacted by the LAPD, and have you been? Were you told that you would be contacted?
Can I answer that?
No. Thank you. No, I mean, she's not going to comment on that. But having said that, I would like to also underline a point that Angelique made about many of our clients, like Angelique, had photos taken of their vaginal area. And a number of them are concerned about what has happened to these photographs. Are they on the internet? Were they used for medical research? Are they in the possession of Dr. Tyndall? Just exactly what happened to these photographs. And it's a major concern of theirs because they don't know what happened to these photographs. We do know, and we talked about this at an earlier press conference, that at first Dr. Tyndall, according to one of our clients, denied that he had a camera. However, when it was reported to the medical clinical director, he went in and found the camera because our client saw where Dr. Tyndall had put it away. And so the question is, how long did he continue to take photographs of women's vaginal areas and other private areas, and what did he do with those photographs? This is a major concern. They wake up every day wondering, some of them, is this on the internet? Is my name attached to that? Is this being used for pornographic purposes? So just to share with you, we don't have the answer to those questions, but these are the kinds of questions we're going to want to get the answers to when we do discovery. That is, meaning taking the depositions, testimony under oath of individuals from USC, and, their written answers as well, and what we call interrogatories. So there are a number of issues. Anything else?
I have a question about the number of your clients, and I'm sorry, but I need to clarify.
36.
Total, not 48.
No,
12.
36 now, as of the filing this morning, in lawsuits.
And
But
of
we
those,
have others,
12 are in this lawsuit.
dozen in this lawsuit, not including Danielle, who's in the first one. But we also have been retained by others, but we just did not place them in this lawsuit because we didn't have time to properly place them in the lawsuit. But they will be in a future lawsuit. We just want to make sure with them that everything they're stating is accurate, and we're very cautious before we actually put a statement of facts in a lawsuit. So we're still checking those, but there will be other lawsuits, and we're confident in those of us who've retained us to put them in a lawsuit.
I have one more question for Danielle.
Okay.
Thank you. I hear a lot of frustration in your voice. You feel perhaps, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this could have been so easily fixed years and years ago. Is that what you're thinking, and is that why you're urging people who may have known something to step up and sort of own it?
Yes, exactly. I'm frustrated that there have been that many of Miss Allred's clients have said that they spoke up and had reported to USC, and that nothing was really done, and that starting in 1989 that I know of, people saw him, and I saw Dr. Tyndall in 2016, and I'm still sitting here today talking about what happened in my appointment. So I'm very, very frustrated at everyone that knew what was going on and overlooked it or said that it was acceptable. They said, again, I also didn't have anybody in the room with me at either appointment. I think that is a huge point, because in 2013, I believe, whenever they had their first, USC had their first internal investigation about Dr. Tyndall, one of the findings that they decided was that they would have somebody accompany each patient in the room, and that did not happen for me.
Okay.
Gloria, 36 so far, what's going to be the grand total? How many others?
I don't know the answer to that because we're continuing to get calls every day. So, and we know that other lawsuits have been filed by other attorneys. And, but we are responding to each and every inquiry by anyone who contacts us to see if we can help them or not. I want to also give a lot of credit to a student organization at USC called Justice for Trojans, and they are also helping the students at USC to understand that they have options legally and that they can assert those options if they're comfortable in doing so.